I do this move not to get a freebie, but sometimes it does work out. John Harris, that hoodie you're wearing is freaking fantastic. Welcome to the show on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Good morning, buddy.
Well, thank you. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And Mark Vandermeer is in here, and he said that, yeah, you can have as many of these hoodies as you'd like. So
I got to talk to Vandy last week. I missed that dude. That's my guy.
I know. Yeah, this one's circa 2017. Been a little while, so it's a little chilly in Houston. So you get to break out all the hoodie gear. I can wear a hoodie pretty much anywhere, so it can be 1,000 degrees. I'll try and still wear the hoodie as much as I can. So yeah, this is one of my favorites. Feeling nice and cozy and getting ready for Tennessee on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll get into that here in a moment. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Johnny, I know how much college football you watch, but how familiar are you with the name Tommy Moffitt, A&M's new strength and conditioning coach? I'm not sure if you followed that world, but the guy was part of the national championship in 2019, has won several national championships, I should say. You heard much about him?
The name is familiar, but it's not a world I live in. I'll say this, though, about strength conditioning coaches. It's funny. I've talked to a lot of coaches over the years, and they'll tell you, head coaches will tell you the most important hire is if you're a defensive-minded coach, who your offensive coordinator is, especially if you're going to call ball plays, and then vice versa. But the most important hire, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is strength and conditioning coach. There's no question. And it sounds obvious to a lot of people, but that position sets the tone for everything that takes place at that university. And it's the way that person and his or her staff connects with these players and draws out swag from them and gets them to push themselves to personal best they can't do. I mean, it's you can't even really put into words what it means to bring in a strength and conditioning coach that has national championship ties, has done it somewhere else where he's been great. There are some names that, you recognize. Tommy Moffitt's a name I recognize. I can't tell you, well, why he's great. Oh, because they do Olympic lifts or they do plyometric. I don't know any of that. But the name Tommy Moffitt is definitely familiar for sure. And that should tell you a little bit about what they want to get done at A&M. And I think, obviously, everybody wanted to see who Mike Elko was going to hire as his coordinators. But to me, that strength conditioning coach, that's the one that really connects the players, because that person and his or her staff is next to the players, alongside the players all the time. That's the person that when the head coaches and the assistant coaches can't connect with the players, they can't have communication with them, they can go to that strength staff and say, what's up? How they doing? And I'll never forget LSU. This was back in 2013. LSU strength coach put like six guys' names on a sheet of paper and said something to the extent of, hey, LSU Tigers, just want to let you know, these 6 players are not committing to the rest of you like the rest of you are. And he listed them, and he taped it to his office door. And I was like, okay, that's motivation. It's a different way of doing it. But, they just have different ways of doing it. And I remember a guy that was at Alabama for a long time, Scott Cochran. I think he ended up going to Georgia. Now, I think he ended up with a special teams job, but he was strength conditioning coach for a long time at Alabama. That dude set the tone, and you were going to follow it. And if Saban found out you weren't, you might as well get out the program at that point. So I just feel like that position is so valuable on so many different levels. So that'd be a great hire as far as I look at it.
Johnny, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think we still have the picture. Nick, if you can show the picture, the Moffitt picture of the draft, we'll see if we can get it pulled up here in a second. But bottom line is Tommy Moffitt posted. He had a little sign outside of his door, and it's told, there it is, attention NFL scouts, look at these dudes right here. They're not doing their work. That's the Tommy Moffitt special right there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. So I didn't realize he was at LSU. So that's exactly it. And you can look at those names, and there's one right down at the bottom. I mean, look at some of these names.
Sam Montgomery, buddy.
Lyle Collins, Quan Alexander. And at the very bottom was Sam Montgomery. And I remembered seeing this during the fall of that year. And then the damn Texans went out and drafted that dude.
Yep.
And I'm like, what are we doing? And the guy never played. Never played.
Isn't he the one who got in trouble, Johnny? Like preseason doing something like he and a couple other guys were doing something dumb and they got kicked off the team. I feel like Sam was in that mix.
Well, there was the Kansas City 3. Dudes were smoking weed in the team hotel the day before playing Kansas City. And I can't remember if he was part of that group. I know there were 2. I don't think he's part of that group, but he had issues.
Yeah.
He had many issues. And he was a 4-3 defensive end. The Texans wanted to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. I was like, that didn't fit. I didn't understand it at all. I was really disappointed with that pick. And a lot of it had to do with that particular picture. That's the one I'm talking about. I didn't realize that was Tommy Moffitt that did it. So I love it. Calling out your dudes saying, hey, man, these guys aren't living up to the standard of being an Aggie. What are you going to do about it? And when you get the players, they're the ones that are kind of running things. That's when you know you've got a program. And I feel like at play, like Georgia, I feel like if a guy went in and slacked off in the weight room at Georgia, man, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and N'Kobe Dean, those dudes were going to be they were going to take care of it themselves. Like you're not part of us, man. So I do think there's a culture that gets built through the weight room. I was never a big weight room guy. I always played 3 sports growing up in high school, so I never really devoted time to weights at all until I got to college. But I understood how much a part of it was because you showed gains and your strength conditioning staff would be like, yeah, man, they'd just be hyped for you. And that just gave you that much more confidence. I didn't love our strength conditioning coach because I thought he was a tool. But I think if you have a good one, I think you can do a whole heck of a lot more than you think you can.
Johnny, let me ask you about the timing of everything that happens in college football. Right now, A&M is in a weird spot, right? You let go of Jimbo. You hire Mike Elko. You've got the transfer portal happening at the same time as National Signing Day a couple of weeks away. You have this bowl game that, in the grand scheme of things, and look, I know the Texas Bowl is a big deal, but like,
no, you can say it. I get it.
It's a distraction right now to what has to happen. You've got coaches that are coaching the Texas Bowl that are also working eventually for another program, right? Like, it's just the timing of it all, man. Just if you could speak to that and how conflicted a coach like Mike Elko probably is, and what the future could look like if they could adjust some of the windows a little bit.
The bowl game, I mean, as much as I want the bowl game to matter because it is here, I do think I think bowl games might change in the future from what we expect out of it. To me, I think bowl games are going to eventually turn into an advanced spring game where coaches are just going to be like, you know what, believe me, the result doesn't matter. Let's go get some sophomores and freshmen. Let's go get them some time on the field. Make sure we're competitive. But we go to Texas Bowl, we're going to play our young guys. Obviously, seniors, thanks. We appreciate it. You'd like to stick around, great. But if not, we're not expecting you to. This is the way we're treating this game. And so seniors kind of know, okay, the last regular season game, that's my last regular season game. That's it. Because once we get to the bowl game, this is what's going to happen. Now, that's something you can establish once Mike Elko is there and going forward. Now, the hope is that you eventually get the playoff games and then everybody's playing and they all matter and away you go. But you're not there yet. And a lot of teams, I look at it and think, put it this way, 2021 season, LSU moved on from Ed Orgeron. They came here to play in the Texas Bowl. They had Jontre Kirkland playing quarterback, who was a wide receiver. They didn't have any quarterbacks on the roster. The only one they had was Nussmeier, and they didn't want to – he had already 4 games. So they didn't want to blow his red shirt. Now they've changed the rule, and they're allowing those players to play in a bowl game. So, but I'm watching this game against Kansas State, and I left. I did my halftime thing, and I left. I'm like, I'm not watching this because LSU, they basically brought their spring practice roster. And Kansas State brought everybody, and Kansas State just stumped them. So it was not a competitive game, but I think in due time, that's what we're going to get to. It's going to be kind of an advanced spring game scrimmage, which is cool. It's fine. I don't mind that. When you change coaches, though, like you said, David, you got all of that to consider. To me, if I'm Mike Elko, the bowl game is the last thing that you even want to tangle with. You set out your coaching staff for whoever's going to be in that coaching. And I remember that game for LSU, they had an offensive coordinator that was going elsewhere or was being fired. That was his last game. He wasn't even offensive coordinator, I don't think. I think he might have been the quarterback's coach, and they didn't have anybody else. They were coaching with like 6 coaches and like 8 graduate assistants. So it ends up being kind of great experience in a way. And so that's the way, if I'm Elko, I treat it like, hey, we're going to send these 5 or 6 coaches. Elijah's coaching it. Go coach your butt off. Because some guys get an opportunity in these games to be an interim coach for a game. They at least can put that on the record, and they get the experience of doing it in a bowl game, put it on a resume, and you never know when that can pay off down the road. But honestly, the bowl game is the last of the things you have to do. The NFL spreads it out a little bit better because the NFL has got free agency that starts in March, and then the draft is the end of April. So there's at least separation between the two. That, I think, is the problem right now in college football, is that you got transfer portal and 4-year recruiting going on at the same time. And you got to spread it out. You got to think like the NFL does. And maybe that's what this new Division I plus is going to be. They'll think more like the NFL, like, okay, let's think about this. Transfer portal, you got January and February. 4-year recruiting is not going to be until, I don't know, March, April. I don't know, flip them, whatever. But you got to separate the two. This is too much for college coaches to have to worry about transfer portal on one side, keeping your players at A&M, talking to players and recruiting them out of the portal on the other side. And then you're also worried about your 4-year recruiting at the exact same time. Like, no, the NFL's got it right from that perspective. You got pro scouts, you got college scouts. They meet a little bit at certain times, but those things are separate, and they're separate by about 2 months. And that makes things just that much easier. The scouts, GMs know, okay, it's time to focus on free agency. At the same time, going to pro days and doing those kind of things, but they're separate. You don't have to make a decision on a draft pick for a while. You can just go get some information, and then on the way home, you can, okay, which free agent are we going to sign? You go from there. This is almost too much for college coaches to have to do, especially in a coaching change. So there's so many things that get lost in the wash in there. And that's what, to me, is interesting. As a player, going to the transfer portal that you think you could have kept, and you get so locked into recruiting 4-year guys that oh, man, we should be putting more emphasis on keeping that transfer. Oh, no, he transfers out. It's just crazy right now. And I don't I don't envy college coaches at this point having to deal with all this, because they got, I know it's going to sound weird, they got to think about themselves too. They got to think about their families. Like, am I going to have a job at A&M? Like, am I going to have a job? Do I know I have a job? Is the bowl game performance dependent on whether I get a job or not? Do I need to be interviewing with other schools instead of staying here and coaching this bowl game? So it's a tough one on coaches for sure. And I know, just talking to some of the college coaches, this is the one time a year they absolutely abhor. They hate this time of year. And there's some that I know some head coaches that aren't at the A&M level, the SEC level, that have been dreading this time because they're losing so many kids to the portal, and they know it. And it's that much more difficult for them to keep the program going year after year with the same continuous group. But it's kind of the way college football has gone. It's more like the NFL now than ever.
Johnny Edge Cooper yesterday said he's going to be declaring for the NFL draft. Your thoughts on what kind of pro he could be?
LB1. I think he is outstanding. It's interesting because after the 2021 season, I put him in my Harris 100 for 2022 last year. And watching him, he just seemed kind of slow to react. It just felt like he wasn't totally sure of what he should be doing on the field. Now, some of that could be growing pains. Some of that could be learning a new defense. 2023, forget it. That dude played at a level that every linebacker in the country needed to play at. And you've got a couple linebackers. Danny Stutzman, Oklahoma, is going back. Barrett Carter at Clemson is going back. So those would be 2 guys that would have been in a mix to be linebacker 1. I still probably would have gone with Cooper. But right now, as it sits, and I don't think it changes much, Edgerrin Cooper is linebacker 1. Speed, able to diagnose, play screens, spy on mobile quarterbacks, everything that he needs to be a next-level linebacker. Now, I would like to see him play and be a little bit more instinctive. Sometimes I think he guesses right as opposed to knowing right. And I think those are things that he can learn as he gets to this league. But I think about a guy like Edgerrin Cooper playing in our defense. Forget it, man. It would be on. I mean, that's the kind of guy we got to have. And I think that's the kind of guy DeMeco would love. DeMeco obviously loves linebackers. He would love a guy like that. So, yeah, he's linebacker 1 for me. I saw that news and I wasn't surprised. I don't like A&M, obviously, because they lose a great player going on into the next year at SEC. But I know that guy has maxed out what he could do at A&M, and now it's time to go do it in the NFL.
Johnny, last thing for you. What happened in New York, and how do the Texans move on from that, especially with so many injuries hitting the team on the offensive side?
Oh, man. I don't know, David. I mean, that's a crucial point of the season that we just, I don't want to say we let get away. The Jets, the Jets are better than anybody thought. We knew the defense was great, and we let the defense control the game. Not having Tank was bad, really bad. Then we lost Nico. So now you're without Nico, Tank, and Dalton Schultz, the top 3 pass catchers on the team. Like, uh-oh. And you're going against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. So we were kind of set up in some sense for this. And so I was not thrilled. Like the whole week I was kind of dreading that trip because I'm like, I just don't like this. I don't like it at all. I got a feeling Zach Wilson's just going to let it hang loose. And their stars, as DeMeco said, their stars made plays, and we didn't. So now we go to Tennessee. We don't know if CJ's playing. We don't know who's available at wide receiver. And we got to face the Titans wearing their Oilers jerseys, coming off a win over the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, like that said, I'm much more excited about going to Tennessee and taking on these guys than last week. Much, much more excited.
Johnny, appreciate you. What can you tell us all about what's going on footballtakeover.com? Anything new?
I kind of stepped back after the college season was over, so about the time to start picking up some bowl write-ups. Check out my YouTube page. You can check out my Edgerrin Cooper YouTube that I did. This was actually before the South Carolina game. I broke down about probably 7-8 plays of why Edgerrin's going to be linebacker 1. So you can go check that out at JH Football Takeover on YouTube. Going to keep it going. The draft stuff's going to pick up hot and heavy very, very soon. I'm curious to see what more comes out of the NFL draft. McKinley Jackson is going to be a top 50 player, no doubt. I think Edgerrin Cooper will be a top 50 player, and we'll see where else it goes from there. But a lot of stuff over there. So sign up. If you want, go sign up on my YouTube page. Appreciate it, David. You're the best, man.
Thank you, Johnny. Talk to you soon, buddy.